Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening for those of you on the East Coast. I am your host, Dr. Thomas Mallory Hill. I want to welcome you to Dr. T's Philosphy Cafe today. We've reached the end of our business day. It's the 26th day of September. If you are not excited about the close of the month of September, if you're still having a post-Labor Day, post-September 11th, if you're having a post-holiday depression, never fear. The month of October is on its way, full of happiness and cheer. I want to welcome you to our show where we delve into a couple of things in the depths of thoughts, and we want to explore today maybe some complex ideas that engage in, and hopefully some of our callers, or if you're listening later, discussions that are fundamental questions that maybe shape our existence, or look at things about the mysteries of the universe. And maybe we can look at this particular today's show. I want to delve into a little bit about what we did from last week. We talked about three authors, C.S. Lewis, Napoleon Hill, and J.R.R. Tolkien. These literary geniuses back in their day, almost 100 years ago or so, as they began to create their writings, we want to explore a couple of things and a couple of thoughts for you today. Since this program delves into kind of like a little bit of profound and complex ideas, again, that define existence, we want to navigate maybe a little bit through the ethics and metaphysics and existentialism and physiologies of and beyond in our universe. It may cross some theology, it may cross some religion, some today contemporary and not necessarily political, but at least when we look at the human race, how we have evolved and where we are today as we wrestle with some of the topics of today, and particularly with C.S. Lewis. Mary, I don't know if you're here. I do hear a few people in the background. If you are listening and part of our listening audience, this is a live broadcast, and the number is 714-816-4686 if you'd like to call in. I think we can accommodate a few of you at one time. So if you'd like to say good evening, you're welcome to. I hear some background noise. I'll give way to the listener just to say hello.
Gerald, Brooklyn.
Oh, hey, Brooklyn's in the house. Okay. How are you, sir?
Good.
Anyone else on today? Like to acknowledge themselves and just say hello?
Hey, I'm just coughing, so yeah, give me a second.
Oh, hey, Minnesota's in the house, and they're coughing. Maybe we can get them some Ricola or some Vicks menthol or whatever. Throat lozenge.
We just need to get the hay done so that this can breathe again.
I see. Okay. Well, welcome, Mary. How are you? Outside of the cough, you doing well? All right.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of announcements for all of you. If you are an alignable member, some shakings have been going on that involve Dr. T and the alliance that he is representing. There's an event that's coming to Illinois. Particularly, the city is Lisle, Illinois, not very far from me. And there is a business to small business conference, a really huge event for corporate folks who market to small business owners on October 9th and 10th. This event is kind of sponsored and hosted by the Business to Small Business Conference and Alignable Corporation, the Alignable Group. Mr. Groves is co-CEO and founder, and Van Camp, I hope I said his name right, probably didn't, messed it up, the other CEO of Alignable. They have chosen this year, yours truly, to who I have been tasked with compiling a panel of other small business owners from the Naperville Alliance, and we will be the panelists of small business owners for this event. at the end of the day on October 9th. And so I don't know, I just thought about it, if it will be recorded. But if not, please know that I will be giving you details as to tickets and how that's being arranged. Some of the other logistics we are still learning about, but we had a meeting yesterday. I'm very excited about to represent Lineable in that capacity, as well as the other members of the Naperville Alliance group. We are going to hopefully represent you all well. The panel that we are comprised of is to give other businesses, small business influencers, a chance to talk about really what matters to them. And this is aimed at an audience of very, 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 let me put one more, very heavy hitters from the corporate world. These are senior executives and up, and so hopefully we will do all of you justice representing Alignable in this capacity. And as small business owners, hopefully we can navigate and help you all have a voice represented on the 9th of October. Also, yesterday, September 25th, what an exciting day that must have been for the Women's Day event that was held, a virtual event. And Mary, I don't know if you have anything huge coming up, but maybe if you want to announce, or maybe later, an event that you're participating in, or are you ready to make that announcement?
So July 24th, 2025, I have partnered with the Conscious Mastery Academy out of Australia, and we will be releasing the first set of actual certified programs for neurodiversity. Primarily, one program will be in autism and ADHD, and the other one will be in veterans and PTSD.
Fantastic. That's July 2025?
Yep. Freedom Day.
Cool. Hey, Mr. McKenzie, are you familiar with a Super Saturday that I will be speaking in on October the 12th, but are you familiar with that particular event? Is there anything you'd like to add about events that are going on with your ASEA Redox people that you're aware of? Well, absence of Mr. McKenzie, he might have stepped away. There is an event that's being held in Indianapolis on October the 12th from 10 to 3 Eastern Time, and with the ASEA Redox group, the Midwest Redox Super Saturday is an opportunity to speak. There will be other speakers beside myself, Barbara Stokes, Dr. Gary White from Boise, Idaho. No, from Spokane, Washington, sorry. I forgot there's another medical person there to just discuss what redox potential is, and hopefully that Saturday it'll be free for guests. Only the associates are paying. We want our guests to be free. So in terms of that announcement, I want to make that. And one of our good friends, Robin Edelman, met a little bit of a challenge out in Reno, Nevada. And so I would like for you, if you're thinking of it, just maybe keep family and friends in prayer. They're facing some challenges, as I'm sure probably hundreds of thousands of people are. I saw a quote last month that I posted on Facebook. Sorry about that. I posted on Facebook, and it said something to the effect of, and I forgot the author's name, but it was to the effect of last night, someone took their last breath as you rose this morning. So we should all be grateful that we're still all vertical, and the fact that someone that may be facing some challenges today, keep those who are dear to your heart, and those who may listen to this broadcast. Just keep people in mind that we all are faced with different challenges, and sometimes for those of you in the spiritual realm might feel like that's a test that your Heavenly Father is presenting to you to see how much you love Him and how about your faith. And speaking of that, faith, perfect segue into what I want to delve into a little bit today from C.S. Lewis. I often wondered when we discussed this last week, C.S. Lewis, Napoleon Hill, J.R.R. Tolkien were literary contemporaries, right? And we discussed they had a similar in terms of their works. There were things that that Lewis talks about. He's known as a Christian apologist. Initially started out as an atheist due to an early demise of him losing his mother, and that kind of shaped his resistance to God, because while his mother died in the early 20th century of cancer, I think it was an abdominal cancer, that since God didn't answer that prayer, he was angry with God. And I'm sure many people may be able to relate to that. On the other hand, J.R.R. Tolkien, famous for the literary works like the Chronicles of Narnia, and or rather, that was Lewis with Chronicles of Narnia. J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, The Power Rings, those types of works that they both did. But I want to kind of zero in on something today a little bit about C.S. Lewis that's intrigued me, and see if there's anybody else in the audience, or whether you're doing a Google search or a Google Scholar thing about C.S. Lewis. One of the things that intrigued me was his friendship with J.R.R. Tolkien. And just for the sake of it, if anybody in the audience, just kind of, voice in, if you like, how many of you have heard of the work by J.R.R. Tolkien called The Lord of the Rings? Or there were different books, but we know them in the last 20 years. There's, I think, Peter Jackson.
All right, Dr. Hill.
Who was that? Who am I speaking with? Just identify yourself.
Deborah Thompson from Newport.
Hey, Deborah. You said you were familiar with J.R.R. Tolkien's work?
That is the favorite book of my husband.
All right.
And we have we watched The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, The Philosphy of the Rings, and Return of the King at least once a year, if not twice.
All right. Are any other
and
callers on?
They are actually making other movies, but they did an excellent rendition of it when they were making the movie.
Yes.
And it was actually made in New Zealand. And some of the trivia from that was so neat was they actually used kids off the street for the kids. They didn't have any true actors that were doing the kids. They actually pulled kids off the street to do them. So they were, so that was pretty neat, trivia. When my husband can tell you a lot of trivia on that one.
Sure. Anyone else? Any other callers on? Excuse me, Deborah. Anybody else about J.R.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis's work, The Chronicles of Narnia? Anyone? Lewis wrote a lot of children's work, and some of the influences that Lewis had with The Chronicles of Narnia was a combination of, with his, not only the personal imagination like Tolkien, the Christian faith kind of influenced some of his work. Not unlike Tolkien, who was Catholic, was influenced, a lot of his work. One of the works that C.S. Lewis, I want to bring a story. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was a fairy tale, is a fairy tale, I should say, and mythology that also played a role in his, just a desire to create a fictional world where Christian themes could be explored allegorically. We had that conversation last week because both J.R.R. Tolkien used allegories, as did Lewis, and the difference between Lewis's work and Tolkien's work in contrast to Napoleon Hill's work, had to do with faith. The subtext is Napoleon Hill looked at faith not just from a theological or religious perspective, but from a secular one, and talked about an applied faith in his book, Think and Grow Rich, where faith had to really do with the confidence in oneself. So I want to bring that to the table as well. But one other thing that intrigued me this week and why I want to have this conversation, and audience, if you're listening or if you would like to participate, there was a group, there was a mastermind, if you will, called the Inklings, Inklings. The Inklings group played in the development of both Tolkien and Lewis, and there's a side note I want to bring to your attention. It says that this was a kind of a development of members' works by providing a supportive environment for literary critique and collaboration. So this group served as a mastermind. So let me throw out to the audience, has anyone ever heard of the idea of a mastermind? Napoleon Hill describes it as the two or more people getting together to what Tolkien and Lewis did for the exchange of for feedback, for accountability, for critiquing and collaborating. Mastermind. Anybody ever heard of that? Just kind of chime in. I thought I heard somebody very faintly say. Mary, did you catch that, or was that you?
Yes, this is Joe McKenzie again. I'm sorry before I couldn't find the unmute button on my phone.
Okay.
But I'm working on trying to get some support out there to you for the October event. I'll keep in contact with you. And about a mastermind. Yes. When you talk about mastermind, in my business, there's always been 2 or 3 people that I were able to get together, and we would strategize and make plans to do something, and it worked out very well. Because each of us had a different point of view, and when you're looking at the same goal, because you got different views, you always basically you get to the point right away, the most efficient way of getting there. Yeah. Because what one person is thinking about, another person might not be thinking about.
Well, listen to this, Joe. Check this out. It said that the Inklings was a group which included these particular notable figures, Lewis and Tolkien. They met regularly to read aloud and discuss each of his works in progress, offering feedback and encouragement. And this process, right, of collaboration and critiquing each other's works helped refine the significant works like, again, Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, and Lewis's work, The Chronicles of Narnia. The Inklings' discussions also fostered creative collaboration, allowing members to explore themes like mythology and Christianity, which were central to their writings. I started a group on a lineup on March of this year. I didn't know that this is what almost the foundation of why I created this, because of authors who of various stripes, published and non-published, just people who like to write. I formed something similar to this with the Naperville Authors Group, but when I read this idea of what the Inklings discussions were, they were designed to foster creative collaboration and allowing members to explore themes like mythology or Christianity, not for our group, but just so that they have some feedback. Can anybody give me a comment or two, not just on the authors group, but that's just what's close to my heart, but is there any reason maybe in your particular businesses, I think, Mary, you have a group that meets on Saturdays. I'm going to mess up the name of it. I know it has to do with storytelling, but Mary, and let me ask if you're still listening, does your group do anything like this where you guys have discussions and you foster creative collaboration about what you can do with neurodiversity or anything else close to that? She might be preoccupied. Okay. Yeah, sounds like she's preoccupied. Somebody, I just heard, Mama. Anybody else, Joe or Deborah or anybody else who's listening? Can you think of a reason in your existing business or your interactions with other people to get together at a certain point, monthly, weekly, quarterly, whatever, for creative collaboration? Does that sound like something that you might want to do for the people that you work with or interact with?
Oh, Dr. Hill, the collaboration, I think, is what has changed a lot of. I mean, that's how you grow, and you don't have to go through some of the hard things in life because you're going through experiences that somebody else has gone through, instead of you having to go through them.
Could you give me an example, Deborah?
Sure. I'm a CPA, and maybe somebody's already gone through doing a type of taxes that I have not gone through before. And instead of me having to go through it and make a lot of mistakes, you call that friend and say, hey, have you done a 1031 exchange, or have you done this type of business tax return? Oh yeah, I've done those before, and can you walk me through it, or can you give me your experiences on it? What are the potholes that I need to look out for? Because they help a lot. That's the reason why it's so much easier to go through things like that. As a financial advisor, the same thing. You're always looking for somebody. You'd much rather go through the hard knocks through somebody else's eyes instead of your own, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. An interesting.
Because going through, and you can share your own when somebody says, "Well, have you gone through this experience?" And you go, "Yep, I sure have. This happened to me, and I can give you one experience. I had a 1040X, which is an amended return, and the person that I had on the IRS side could not understand that I had added the refund and what they had paid together, and the IRS could not understand that I had already added them, and they couldn't understand why I did it.
Okay.
And we spent 4 hours on the phone arguing which one was right, which was silly because they were both right. Nice.
So collaborating helps you navigate that particular
well, it might stop the 4 hour. I mean, that was 4 hours of wasted time as far as I was concerned.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If somebody had just told me that there was a line here and there's a line there, do it that way, I'd have gone, oh, well, same answer. I'll just do it the easier way next time.
Sure. Let me circle back with the Inklings group that was formulated with Lewis and some of the other people who also studied at Oxford and at Cambridge universities. But when Napoleon Hill brought this to at least my attention, but was written and published in 1926 rather, almost 100 years now, the idea of two minds, two individual human beings, vibrating at the same frequency or even different frequencies, if you will, schools of thought, we might say. Tolkien and Lewis did the same things with their respective works in The Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia. I found myself I'm not much of reading their literary works, but I do know for a 20th and 21st century human being, I like the movies, not unlike what you said, Deb. And there's a new series out called The Power Ring that's on Prime Video. I've been been watching. But I've also been intrigued by the Chronicles of Narnia. When my children were young, those were the kinds of things that I entertained them with. And as an educator in elementary, middle school, and high school, students who were fans of those movies and watched them, I learned quite a bit about the Chronicles of Narnia, particularly because it provided some background about the conflict and the displacement that mirrored the fantasy world. So here you got people in World War II. We think we got it bad now. World War II in Great Britain was probably not a fantasy, but this is Lewis's work where they escape and they help children escape the horrors and the things that shape their world during World War II. But he says here, there's a piece of the article in the Chronicles of Narnia says that the evacuation of children during World War II that Lewis actually experienced firsthand, not only by hosting evacuees, inspired the story's premise of children entering a new world. So the White Witch, this tyrannical rule in Narnia, reflects the fascist regimes to Nazi Germany, akin to Nazi Germany, and additionally, those movies, those books of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think it was called. Now I'm mixing them up with the Pirates of the Caribbean. Not that, but there was one. Prince Caspian was one that I looked at, and there was another one about the voyage of Narnia. And what's fascinating to me is when you look back at the symbolic connections between the White Witch and what Lewis was writing at the time in the Chronicles of Narnia, what it must have been to have a fascist dictator like Adolf Hitler in his time, and through the use of fear and control, which was reminiscent of Nazi Germany at the time, the White Witch in the Chronicles of Narnia really maintained power by instilling fear, and similar to how fascist regimes used the secret police like the Gestapo to enforce their rule. Her spies and the indistinguishable nature of her allies that they wrote in the Chronicles of Narnia reflect the pervasive surveillance state under fascism. I'm not asking anybody to draw any conclusions because, of course, we all can. But, again, this was written to children to help them identify, here's this Aryan ideal that was promoted by Nazis at that time, and you're a child in World War II, and you're dealing with this connection, this symbolic connection of the forces of good and evil. I think, again, allegorically, it draws our attention away to keep our children protected and putting them in maybe in a fantasy mode, but at the same time helping them to navigate their real world. I think that's what television does for us today. Maybe even being caught up in TikTok and some of these other social media platforms, we get a chance to escape the movies and streaming, that type of thing. But again, I'm coming back to Lewis and Tolkien. Does anyone, is it just me, do you see any similarities in when you can collaborate with other people creatively? If you're an author, and I'm speaking particularly to those who like to write, can you see the significance of getting together with another to help hone your craft or to hone, even criticize to a certain extent what it is you're writing? Does that make sense to anyone? Again, the number is 714-816-4686 if you'd like to chime in.
Yeah, that makes good sense. It makes very, very good sense. And all you have to do is, from history, if you know your history, it gives you a path to look forward to. Have you
ever read, Joe, let me interrupt, but may I ask, have you read? You were in the magazine business, if I recall. Did you ever read any of C.S. Lewis's work yourself, or any of the literary works?
Let's put it this way. When I was much younger, I did a lot of reading, and a lot of that stuff I've forgotten about. But when you talk about stories, about with children and some of the horrors, the things that have happened, I have flashbacks, and I don't know where I saw it or read about it, but when I have these, when you're just talking just now, I started flashing back when I was, I guess, 14, 15, 16 years old, of World War II, going someplace. My dad took me someplace where they had children being pierced by swords, by the I guess on the rifles they have a bayonet at the tip of the rifle, and they were killing children and things like that. It was in a museum or someplace like that. And my dad taught me when I was much younger about that, and he related to what was happening at that time and how we were living and stuff like that. And he said, if you don't be careful, this could happen to you right here in today. And that was probably way back in, I guess, the 1950s, 60s. Yeah, about the 1950s, 60s. I was a teenager. I went to the Navy in 56. My dad taught me a lot of that stuff. I don't know about reading, but I do remember vividly, like I can remember now, the picture is so clear. And it just frightened me that people could be so evil.
Okay.
And I think, trying to find the word, I've been ingrained in me to look out. Can't find the word to explain. Well, country-wise, what we call mother wit. A gut punch to keep yourself safe.
Okay.
It's an innate feeling that comes out from the gut, whether to be safe or not. And you have to decide to stay or to run. And
kind of like they call it, I think psychologists call it the flight or fight syndrome. And it also has to do with your intuition, or another way to say it, your mother wit. I think you said common sense earlier. I want to pose this question also. I just looked at some of the literary influences on both gentlemen Lewis and Tolkien, but one of the things that I keep coming back to, that I'm drawn into, how Napoleon Hill says that when you get to, and Christ said it a different way too, but he put it, I'll say it theologically, Christ said that where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, that he's in the midst. Put a peg there, put a pin there, and then jump over here as Lewis and Tolkien, putting their minds together to work collaboratively on their work. And the main literary influences on both of these authors had to do with mythology and language, 1. 2, Christian faith. 3, there was a gentleman by the name of Owen Barfield's poetic dictation. And number 4 was World War I. So those 4 things, mythology and language, both of these authors were deeply influenced by Norwegian or Norse, N-O-R-S-E, mythology, and the intricacies of language, which they both discovered they had a shared interest. The passion that's evident in Tolkien's creation about the Lord of the Rings, Deborah mentioned the Return of the King, the Fellowship of the Rings, the Hobbit, all of these characters in mythology. And I didn't say which one. It could be Greek, it could be Roman, it could have been Babylonian or a Sumerian mythology, Egyptian. All of these things of our ancient cultures had a twinge of truth, but also myth, coupled with the second point of these gentlemen, their Christian faith, so that Christianity played a significant role in shaping their writings. Tolkien, again, has Catholic beliefs, which permeated his works, while Lewis's conversation was Christianity and was pivotal, in allegoric Christianity, which later he's known as a Christian apologetic, defending the Christian faith. I find it interesting. Do you hear or see, outside of myself maybe, or Mary maybe, or perhaps Mary Stanley, because we kind of are like-minded in this respect, do you find a lot of people today having more theological discussions and wanting to be with people who are of a Christian faith or a Catholic faith or of a like-minded type of spirit of wanting to be together, or do you find more contrast when it comes to doing business with people, interacting with them? Big question. I don't know. Hope I said it right, but just wondering.
Well, for me, when I was much younger, we did that. We used to get together every Tuesday night. And it would be, we do a Bible study, but it always branched off into different things. Because as I gotten older and things drifted apart, that hasn't happened. But I tell you what, though, I can see this coming back together with dealing with people with redox.
Oh, I see.
The reason why I say that is that the winter season is coming again, and they are pushing the jabs into the arm. And if your immune system is not up to par, if you've got any type of overweight or blood pressure or diabetes or any type of ailment, when you get that jab, you're liable to pay a consequence. And basically, with the redox, we have the answer.
Okay. Well, I had my jab on Tuesday. That was funny you mentioned that.
You drank a lot of redox because you can flush it out.
Nah, I'm good. Most of us whose immune systems are compromised, I get that. But, yeah, the redox would help. Let me ask you this to the audience, 714-816-4686. Where does poetry come in your world where you live? Do you read a lot of poetry? Are there ideas or myth and metaphors that might influence you? Any poets that you could think of, old or new?
Yes. My favorite poet is Langston Hughes.
Okay. Any particular work by Langston Hughes?
I don't remember when you're talking about this. I'm just trying to go back to some of the when I was living in Harlem, and I read a lot of his poetry, and I was sort of addicted to it. A lot of places that he talked about, I had visited and stuff like that, like Sugar Hill.
Well, here's one I want to put out to the audience today again. While I may be approaching this from an intellectual exploration, introspection on this particular topic about these authors, another work that maybe the audience might want to take a look at your library by Lewis is called The Screwtape Letters. The Screwtape Letters is an interesting take on, how can I say, not only faith and one's Christianity or the attack thereof. Lewis, who was this Christian apologetic, this book was published in 1942. So I want you to think, if you were not born before 1942, and you're living the after effects of World War I, from 1942 going forward, like we know generations who are known as boomers, that's from 1949 to 1964. And these actuarial statisticians discuss that every decade we've got Generation X Generation Y, Generation B, but anybody born in the 40s was known as the Great Generation. And when you grow up, and Joe, I'm probably hitting your group, the Screw Tape Letters was a Christian apologetic novel written in a satirical, epistemological style. It consisted of 31 letters from a senior demon. That demon's name was Screwtape, to his nephew Wormwood, advising him on how to tempt a man who was referred to, the man's name was Patient, away from God and towards damnation. Now, that's the backdrop for the Screwtape Letters, published in 1942. World War I ended. We began in 1933, World War II, and many of us know that this was written in the height of World War II, because officially or governmentally it wasn't ended until the late 40s, 45 particularly, when President Truman, I believe it was, Truman, decided governmentally, and if any of you have ever heard of Robert Oppenheimer, who was known as the father of death, who helped recreate and reintroduce atomic fusion and hydrogen fusion, and created a weapon of mass destruction that well over 6 figures of people of Japanese or Asian descent between the two cities of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Joe, you know this probably better because you lived it, ended. And here this man is writing this letter about a demon and his nephew. You think the world might have been a little screwed up when they got hold of this book, and you can actually get this at your local library. So let me open up that commentary. Did I paint enough of a graphic picture, Mr. McKenzie, for you? Did I bring you back to your teenage years? And had you known this, would you have raced to the library to go out and get this book while you're fighting World War II?
No, my father made me read the Bible. And he did Job. He preached to me about Job. Did you say you would have been reading the Bible and the book of Job? My father. He taught us the Bible about Job. You know the story of Job, right?
Yes, sir. That's
when he taught us about Job all that time.
Well, I'm asking the audience to take hold. I'm planting this seed. C.S. Lewis is writing this about a demon trying to hook up his nephew, how to thwart mankind, how to get this guy named Patience to leave God. And the letters explored themes of temptation, human nature, spiritual warfare, offering insights into Christian theology through the perspectives of devils. Now, I'm not advocating to the audience. Let me just make this point. Funny you mentioned Job, Mr. McKenzie, because in that very book, Satan appears, the devil appears. Demons acting as an angel of God presents himself to God. But I'm taking a different vein. I'm taking the vein that says those who are not even believers in God, and not that you have to believe in Satan, but I've heard it said, Mr. McKenzie, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you are in a battle, whether it's an athletic competition or a spiritual one, it's probably good to know what your enemy's tactics are. Would I be wrong in making that assumption? If you don't know who your enemy is and how they come at you, how can you properly defend yourself? And that's open for anybody. 714-816-4686. Go ahead.
That's how in war you have to know all the rules of the war game. And if you see what it's about, you have to size it up and make sure if you want to overcome it or become out the winner, you do what you have to do. And that's basically what we did with Oppenheimer, the atom bomb.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was horrible what they did.
But here's the contrast. Another book for our audience, if you are driving and think it becomes top of mind, the other book that was published, now listen to what I'm about to tell you. C.S. Lewis's book, published in 1942. The other author, Napoleon Hill, writes a book published in 1938, but not released until 2010, because it was said that the title of Mr. Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil, was too controversial to be released in 1938 at the height of the war, in World War II, but not released until 2010, and that book is called Outwitting the Devil. And these two literary giants of our 20th century, Napoleon Hill writes Outwitting the Devil, and then the Screw Tape Letters, published in 1942, again, during World War II, there must have been, or must be even today, if you read these books, if you delve into these literary giants, not for the purposes of belief or as theology or to turn anyone away, but think about people writing this material and how they've influenced not only the 20th century, but the 21st, our current century as well. If you have not read either of these, I would highly recommend that you arm yourself with this kind of literature, with this type of philosophy, because many are. And I dare I say, I don't know if our current climate in the world, not just North America, that's Canada, United States, and Mexico, I'm saying North America, South America, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Australia, the world over, we're being influenced by other people's writing. And when they become top of mind and people begin to adopt these schools of thought, there has to be a way of like having a laser beam pierce through what we see or hear, be it on social media, television, movies, other books and magazines. The things that penetrate even this broadcast, the things that penetrate our minds, if they are not protected, there's a saying I heard, I think it says, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. How does one protect one's mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And
all right.
All I have to say to you, when you read these books, and look what happened there, and look what's happening today, you got to stand for something.
If the audience was... Go ahead, Mr. McKenzie. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
And we have two platforms whose mission is to do good. The alignable mission and the redox mission. To do good to the world. But there are people that oppose it, but we have to just keep on going. And because I truly believe, we're on, well, let's put it this way. It's a battle between light and dark, and I think the mission of light is the alignable, putting people together and helping them to see, and the redox is keeping people healthy.
Well, so let me ask you this, since you put it that way. There are other schools of thought that would say maybe the opposite of that. But I come back to my question or statement.
I agree with you. That's right. I agree
if
with
you.
you.
Don't,
not looking, I put it this way. If you're not looking toward the light, then forget about it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about standing. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And again, for those who don't know the difference between what's light and, let's say, dark, right? Not just redox, just light and dark. Go right ahead.
Well, that's the easiest way to put it. Because what's happening in the world today is just a recycle. And if you read your history, you know what's going on, and you can make the choice for yourself.
And that's why I'm introducing in this school of thought on this show, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, as I did last Friday, just kind of bring this to a head, and Napoleon Hill. You can read a lot of different things. I'm not going to say to the audience what you should do. I know what I do so that I know what faith I'm standing on, and I know a position that I can intellectually, let's say, look at the differences between what's light and what's dark. Not to embrace one or discount the other, but to arm myself to know both. And when you are so informed, and as you put it, Mr. McKenzie, I think people who look at the platform of Alignable want to become knowledgeable and what its purpose serves if you're a business owner or a business professional. And other platforms, social media, they are two different points of view, two different missions. And then if you take the side of, as you've just pointed out, redox biochemistry, not just the organization, not just the manufacturer, I'm talking about the process. That redox, which is a contraction of two words, reductance and oxidant, hence the word redox. When you look at that and you arm yourself with the knowledge and information about what it can do, the signaling that these molecules do, you come to your own conclusion. But I say in light of the literary take that I'm talking about with these authors, sometimes when you read things that enlighten us, just because we know doesn't mean we're going to do. And those of us who have courage to do find that their knowledge, or maybe they become, another way to say it is enlightened. You can know something about screw tape letters or outwitting the devil and never act on it. You can read your Bible and read the book of Job, as you pointed out, Mr. McKenzie, and never act on it. One thing to acquire knowledge, there's another thing to apply it. And even in those instances, as we begin to wrap up today's show, the last one of the month of September, I just applaud you if you are open-minded and you have come down this journey with me in this intellectual exploration about philosophical differences between C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill, there are many works that he's given, but choose your weapon wisely. Sorry, was somebody else speaking?
Can I choose a weapon very wisely?
Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, the weapon I would choose is the Word of God.
I see.
Because one of the things that you have been saying is the main thing about the Word. And, you said if you are just reading and you are listening, but you are not doing, then faith without works is dead.
Oh, I heard somebody say that in the book of James. Yes.
Yes. And Christ, what most people do not pay attention to is the power that it took for Jesus Christ to be raised from the dead. In Ephesians 1:14 through 20, is the exact same power it takes for one person to get saved. And God gives us that blessing when we ask Jesus in our heart.
Interesting when you said that, because I have a follow-up to say, when our listeners, when those of you who hear this post recording, as we invite listeners to embark on this journey of this intellectual exploration and introspection, Deborah, you just pointed that particular book out, the Bible, God's Word, as you put it, and yet someone else will pick up Outwitting the Devil or the Screw Tape Letters and come to a conclusion that, as Mr. McKenzie also pointed out, and eloquently so, that once you know the difference between what's light and what's dark, we get something that God gave every piece of flesh from the time of Adam and Eve until today. We have something we think, I know, is free will. We get to choose. And in our choosing, in our being influenced by our readers or our authors or those we listen to, those whose books and magazines we read, we get to choose. And I think when you give people an open and honest, transparent, authentic, honest, ethical version of ourselves and the brands that we bring to bear from our respective companies and organizations, there are very, 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 very few organizations that have a soul, a corporate soul. Many legal entities are known as legal entities, as are human beings. Much like artificial intelligence is an entity, but it is an entity that does not have a soul, soul. And when we combine our business entities as this one organization, ASEA, its ethos is it has a corporate soul. And I don't have to convince people of the people who are a part of the ASEA corporate organization, but I also think that permeates those who read Screw Tape Letters and Outwitting the Devil or the Bible. We become like-minded not only in our faith, but in our walk, in our mission of how we love our neighbors as ourselves, as Napoleon Hill said, that when we treat others the way we want to be treated, if we were them, that ethos that the legal entity ASEA ascribes to says we have an opportunity, and Joe McKenzie said it earlier better, we have a choice to be a force for good in the world. And whether people see that in us individually, as I begin to wrap this show up, we've got just a minute or two, we get to choose. And that's where I like this show and what Mary Stanley and the Hope Foundation, the Blog Talk Radio has afforded me as its host an opportunity to be open, to not be judgmental, to take a journey intellectually and explore both introspectively or take a micro view as well as a macro view on the things that impact our lives. So, Mary, if you rejoined us, I want to say thank you again for today for producing it and making it available. Remember the event on October 9th with the Business to Small Business Institute and the Allowable Naperville Alliance Group, and I, as well as 6 others, will be hosting as panelists. I appreciate that. And the Midwest Super Strategy Seminar in October on the 12th. In July of 2025, Mary Stanley will be strutting her stuff with the new venture that she is partaking in. I know it's going to be successful, Mary.
Well, and the goal is to keep it affordable so that everyone can do it, but it will be in virtual with training involved, so you have to make qualifications and able to get certified.
Well, that's
so
fantastic.
That people are trained correctly. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Listen, we have reached the top of the hour, and so I'm going to bid you farewell. And until next Thursday, if my math is right, I think that's October 3rd. But if not, we will see you next. What is it, Mary? It's October what?
3rd.
October 3rd at 5. Have a safe drive home, and I'm signing off. Thank you all for attending today. Good night, and bye-bye.